Bonnie mentioned, not just volunteers. We couldn't do this work without all the help of our volunteers. Not only are you helping our projects, but you're learning about that, and then you also become more of our ambassadors, kind of spreading the word about water quality and oysters, which we really appreciate. So we appreciate you taking the time to be a steward of the coast. Also, each of your volunteer hours is valued, I think, around $25 now in terms of match. So when we write a grant, for example, this grant that we're working underneath today, it was funded by the Atlantic States Marine Fisheries Commission. And they say, we will provide you funding, but you have to match it $1 to $1, which means that we have to come up with another, this is $25,000 in match. So we use volunteers, because each of you is $25 times 4 hours today. It adds up a lot. So that provides a very important match and extends that funding a lot more. So not only are you donating your time, but you're also donating a lot of value in a lot of different ways. So thank you. And especially those folks who are either in the service, donating their time, as well as the companies, Shucking Shack and Serve Pro, and the other one was? Re-engineering. Re-engineering? So thank you all very much. We really appreciate that, and thank your corporations for letting you do that. So today what we're trying to do, as Bonnie mentioned, oysters are very important. This body of water out here is called Stump Sound. That's Topsail Island back behind there. Stump Sound is known for its oysters. It's kind of the Cadillac of oysters in North Carolina. Stump Sound also has one of the highest concentrations of oyster farms in the state now. So there's a tremendous wild fishery, but also this farm industry is growing tremendously because of the very good water quality and the unique taste that Stump Sound provides to its oysters. But this area is also underneath a lot of pressure. Basically about half the wild harvest of North Carolina comes from the area, basically from Emerald Isle all the way down to Brunswick County. So half the oyster harvest comes from the southern region, and out of that area, that's only about 5% of all the oyster waters in the state, and a lot of that is closed most of the time. So the harvest pressure here is very, very high. So when we talk about oysters, we not only talk about the reef rebuilding, the oyster farming, we talk a lot about water quality. We need good water quality, because we could have the best oysters in the state, but if the waters are closed to harvest because of pollution from stormwater when it rains, we can't eat them. And so not only do you have the environmental effect, you also have the economic effect of losing that valuable harvest and economy. And so we restore oysters in a couple different ways. One, we try to restore water quality through stormwater projects, as Bonnie mentioned. We purchased this piece of property, which is 52 acres, in 2004 as a buffer for Stump Sound and education. It's also a launching point for a lot of oyster restoration efforts. So the Division of Marine Fisheries stockpiles oyster shell and marl here, and they'll put it on their shallow draft barges at the end of the pier. And they'll go out and they'll build reefs. They'll put the material into the water. Oysters will colonize it, build new reefs. We also do the Living Shorelines, which is what we're focused on today. But oysters are, as Bonnie mentioned, very, very important. They're kind of our ecosystem engineers. And it's very tangible results. So this is a shell bag right here. This is what it looks like new. We put it in the water, and this is what we kind of hope it looks like after a couple of years. So all that is new oyster growth. Some of those are pretty big, some of those are teeny tiny. That's the way oysters grow, is they spawn, the reefs will spawn. So you have male and female oysters, you get a fertilized egg, it floats around and goes through a larval stage about over 3 weeks. And then that little larvae develops the ability to swim and detect light. And it doesn't want to be on the surface. It swims down the bottom and attaches to something hard, preferably another oyster shell. And then it will grow from there. It produces its own shell. And that's what we're hoping. We're basically providing the base or the skeleton of these reefs.